In the sterile glow of the hospital's emergency room, under the harsh fluorescent lights that seemed to pulse with urgency, a tiny baby lay on the operating table, her skin pale as porcelain, her breaths shallow and fading. The billionaire father, Alexander Voss, stood frozen behind the glass observation window, his face a mask of raw terror, tears streaming down his chiseled features as he pounded his fist against the barrier. "Save her. Please, God, save my little girl," he screamed, his voice echoing through the corridor. 12 of the world's most renowned doctors hovered around the infant, their brows furrowed in defeat, instruments clattering to the floor as they shook their heads one by one. Monitors beeped erratically, the heart rate dropping perilously low. Seconds from death, that's what they all whispered. But then, from the shadows of the room, a humble cleaner in faded scrubs stepped forward, her hands trembling but her eyes steady. I think I know what to do," she murmured, her voice cutting through the chaos like a lifeline. The room fell silent. Would this unlikely hero succeed where geniuses had failed? Hold on, because this is just the beginning, or is it the end? Alexander Voss wasn't always the titan of industry the world knew him as. Born into modest means in a small Midwestern town, he had clawed his way to the top through sheer grit and unyielding ambition. By age 40, he had built Voss Enterprises into a global empire, amassing billions in tech innovations that revolutionized communication. But wealth came at a cost. His first marriage crumbled under the weight of his endless work hours, leaving him alone in his sprawling Manhattan penthouse, surrounded by luxury but starved for connection. That changed when he met Elena, a brilliant artist from Italy, whose free spirit thawed his guarded heart. They married in a whirlwind romance, and soon after, their daughter, little Isabella, arrived, a miracle baby after years of fertility struggles. Isabella was the light of Alexander's world, her giggles echoing through the halls like music he never knew he needed. But fate has a cruel way of testing the mighty. It started innocently enough, or so they thought. Isabella was just 6 months old when the first signs appeared. A persistent cough that wouldn't fade, fevers that spiked without warning, and a lethargy that stole the sparkle from her eyes. Alexander spared no expense, flying in specialists from Harvard, Johns Hopkins, and even international experts from Europe and Asia. The diagnosis was devastating, a rare genetic disorder called xeroderma pigmentosum variant, compounded by an undiagnosed autoimmune response that was shutting down her organs one by one. "It's like her body is at war with itself," one doctor explained, his voice heavy with sympathy. Alexander's world shattered. He poured millions into research, set up a private wing at the city's premier hospital, and assembled a dream team of 12 elite physicians, each a leader in their field, from pediatric genetics to immunology. They promised miracles, but as days turned to weeks, Isabella's condition worsened. Tubes snaked across her tiny body, machines whirring to keep her alive. Alexander barely slept, pacing the halls, his once impeccable suits rumpled, his eyes hollow with despair. Enter Maria Gonzalez, the hospital's night shift cleaner. At 52, Maria had lived a life far removed from Alexander's opulence. Born in a dusty village in rural Mexico, she immigrated to the U.S. as a young woman, dreaming of a better future for her family. She worked tirelessly. First as a farmhand, then in factories, and now mopping floors and emptying trash bins in the very hospital where miracles were supposed to happen. Maria had raised 3 children on her own after her husband passed from a sudden illness, scraping by on minimum wage, her hands calloused from years of labor. But she carried a quiet wisdom, passed down from her grandmother, a village healer who used ancient herbal remedies and keen observation to treat ailments modern medicine often overlooked. Maria never spoke much, she blended into the background, invisible to the doctors and patients alike. Yet, she watched everything, her sharp eyes noticing patterns others missed. As the doctors deliberated in hushed tones, their egos clashing in the face of failure, Maria lingered in the corner, her mop forgotten. She had seen Isabella's charts accidentally left open one night, numbers and terms that meant little to her, but the symptoms stirred memories. Her own son, as a baby, had suffered something similar: unexplained fevers, weakness, a body rejecting itself. The doctors back home had given up, but her grandmother's remedy, a simple infusion of local herbs combined with a dietary shift, had turned the tide. Could it be the same? Maria hesitated, her heart pounding. Who was she to interfere? But as Isabella's monitor flatlined for a split second before stabilizing, Maria's resolve hardened. She stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "Senor Voss, por favor, listen to me." The room turned, disbelief etched on every face. Alexander, desperate, nodded. "What do you know?" he asked, his voice cracking. Maria explained her theory, her words tumbling out in a mix of English and Spanish. It wasn't just the genetics, it was an environmental trigger, perhaps an allergy to the synthetic materials in the hospital's incubators or a deficiency overlooked in the high-tech tests. She suggested a natural poultice from common kitchen ingredients: turmeric, ginger, and honey, applied gently, combined with a broth to boost immunity. The doctors scoffed. "This is pseudoscience," one barked, a renowned immunologist from Yale. "We're dealing with life and death here, not folk tales." Alexander wavered, torn between logic and desperation. But as Isabella's breaths grew ragged, he made the call. "Let her try. What do we have to lose?" The tension thickened as Maria prepared the mixture in the corner, her hands steady despite the glares. She applied it to Isabella's chest, whispering a prayer under her breath. Minutes ticked by like hours. Then, the monitor beeped, a slight uptick in oxygen levels. Hope flickered. But suddenly, Isabella convulsed, her tiny body arching in pain. The doctors rushed in, shouting orders. Had Maria's intervention made it worse? The room erupted in chaos, Alexander collapsing to his knees. Was this the end? No, it wasn't. As the convulsions subsided, something miraculous happened. Isabella's color returned, her fever broke, and the monitors stabilized. The doctors ran tests, their jaws dropping. The autoimmune flare was receding, the genetic markers stabilizing in a way their treatments hadn't achieved. "It's impossible," muttered the lead physician, Dr. Harlan Reed, a man who had authored textbooks on the subject. But the evidence was undeniable. Maria's simple remedy had addressed a hidden inflammation that their advanced scans had missed, a reaction to a preservative in the four fluids, masked by the complexity of the disorder. It wasn't magic, it was observation, intuition, and knowledge rooted in generations of survival. Alexander embraced Maria, tears soaking her scrubs. "You saved her. How can I ever repay you?" Maria smiled humbly. "Just let her grow strong, senor. That's enough." But the story didn't end there. Word spread like wildfire through the hospital corridors. The media caught wind, a billionaire's baby saved by a cleaner? Headlines blared, turning Maria into an overnight sensation. Alexander, grateful beyond words, offered her a fortune, but she refused. "Use it to help others like me," she said. Inspired, he founded the Voss Foundation for Integrative Medicine, blending cutting-edge science with traditional wisdom, funding scholarships for underprivileged healers worldwide. Maria became its ambassador, her story empowering countless others to speak up, regardless of their station. Yet, challenges lingered. Not all welcomed the change. Some doctors resigned in protest, their pride wounded. Alexander faced backlash from investors who saw his shift as a sign of weakness. And Maria? She grappled with the spotlight, missing the quiet anonymity of her old life. Her children worried about her safety amid the frenzy. One night, as Alexander visited Isabella in recovery, a shadowy figure lurked in the halls, a disgruntled former doctor, perhaps, or a rival seeking to discredit the miracle. A vial shattered in the supply room, alarms blaring. Poison? Sabotage? Alexander's heart raced as security swarmed. Who was behind it, and would it undo everything? The investigation revealed it was Dr. Reed himself, driven by jealousy, tampering with records to claim the cure as his own. Confronted, he broke down, admitting his fear of obsolescence. Alexander, showing mercy forged from his own trials, offered redemption instead of ruin, joined the foundation, learned from Maria. Reed accepted, humbled, and the team grew stronger. Isabella thrived, her first steps a triumph celebrated by all. Maria returned to her roots but with purpose, teaching workshops that bridged worlds. Years passed. Isabella, now a vibrant child, played in the park under Alexander's watchful eye. He had changed, less empire building, more family time. Maria visited often, their bond unbreakable. The foundation saved thousands, proving that true healing comes from unity, not hierarchy. In the quiet moments, Alexander reflected on that fateful night. Wealth couldn't buy life, but humility could invite miracles. The message is clear: in a world divided by status and knowledge, the greatest saviors often come from the least expected places. Listen to the whispers of the overlooked. They hold the keys to salvation. If this story touched your heart and reminded you of the power of compassion, hit that like button and subscribe for more inspiring tales that prove anyone can be a hero. Thanks for watching.